She was brilliant, curious, and endlessly driven. Renée Hartevelt, a young Dutch woman in her mid-20s, had come to Paris not only to study comparative literature, but to immerse herself in the city of art, language, and philosophy. The Sorbonne welcomed students from around the globe, and Renée stood out, not only for her intellect, but for her warmth. She had a presence that drew people in, graceful in conversation, confident in debate, and generous with her time. Among the many students who orbited her world was a quiet, awkward Japanese man named Sagawa. He rarely spoke in class, often scribbling furiously in notebooks, his eyes sunken yet observant. Many saw him as eccentric, harmless, perhaps even kind. He had a nervous energy, always apologetic with a slight stutter when he spoke French. But he admired Renée with silent intensity, too afraid to speak much to her at first. Slowly, over weeks, he worked up the courage to ask if she would help him with poetry translations. She agreed, gladly, as she often did when classmates needed support. Renée believed in kindness. She didn't know she was stepping into the gaze of obsession. Sagawa was different. While others saw Renée as a peer, he saw something else. Something unspeakable, something he didn't dare name. As they met more often to work on poetry, he remained formal and distant. She would read verses out loud in Dutch, and he would listen, taking notes with trembling hands. He rarely made eye contact. He praised her voice, her fluency, her compassion. She thought it was academic admiration. It wasn't. There were rumors, whispers that Sagawa had been caught peering at students too long, asking unusual questions, withdrawing from social groups entirely. But Paris is a city where oddities are expected, even embraced. No one pressed too hard. What no one knew was that Sagawa had long harbored violent fantasies, unimaginable ones, thoughts that he considered normal for years. He had once followed a tall woman home in Tokyo, entering her apartment intending to consume part of her. But she woke up and he was arrested. Charges were dropped and his wealthy family quietly sent him to Paris to start over. That incident was buried, unknown in France. Then came the invitation. A quiet evening in his small apartment near the university. Sagawa told Renée he wanted to record her reading German poetry. She said yes, why wouldn't she? He was shy, not threatening. They'd worked together before. She brought her notebook and her trust. She sat in a chair, unaware of what lay behind her. A rifle, loaded and ready. He had purchased it just days earlier. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind again and again, what he would say, how he would explain. But in that moment, he said nothing. As Renée read aloud from Goethe, he picked up the rifle, walked behind her, and pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the apartment, but no one heard. Renée slumped forward, instantly lifeless. Sagawa stood frozen for minutes. Then, methodically, he began what he had long fantasized about, consuming her. He spent the next 2 days living in the apartment with her body, photographing it, cutting it, eating parts of it raw, others cooked. He spoke to her as if she were still alive. He took photographs of her body posed in various ways. He later said it was not out of hatred, but out of desire and admiration. On the 3rd day, the stench became overwhelming. Sagawa knew he had to dispose of what remained. He packed parts of her into 2 suitcases and called a taxi, asking to be dropped off near the Bois de Boulogne, a wooded park area known for its seclusion. He wheeled the bags toward a lake, planning to sink them, but people noticed. The suitcases were leaking blood. A couple alerted the police. Sagawa was arrested within hours, standing calmly beside the water. At first, the story was too grotesque to believe. How could this tiny, soft-spoken student have done something so monstrous? But inside his apartment, police found everything. Photos, body parts, journal entries, and a full confession. He was eager to explain himself. He told them he had long believed that by eating someone, he could absorb their beauty, their strength. It was not rage, it was desire. The French courts deemed him legally insane and unfit to stand trial. He was institutionalized for just 2 years before being deported to Japan, where, shockingly, he was declared sane. Because French authorities refused to release sealed court documents to Japanese prosecutors, he could not be tried again. And so, despite confessing to murder and cannibalism, Issei Sagawa walked free. He lived openly in Tokyo. He wrote books about the killing. He gave interviews. He painted, posed for photos, and even appeared in adult films. The man who had taken Renee's life in the most brutal, dehumanizing way imaginable became a minor celebrity. The justice system had no hold on him. It wasn't until decades later, in 2022, that he finally died, alone, penniless, of pneumonia. He had become a recluse in his final years, suffering from health complications, abandoned by the media that once sought him out. But the real tragedy is not that Sagawa became infamous. It's that Renee, the vibrant student who had crossed borders to learn, to connect, to be part of something bigger, was reduced to a name in someone else's horror story. She never got justice. Her family never got answers beyond the grotesque truth. And the world was left with the haunting reminder that true evil can wear the quietest smile, and that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they sit right beside us, quietly taking notes.